The next topic on our agenda, and the reason where this all got started in the first place was irrigations only last so long, and ours is at the end of its life and needs to replace. What about the basics of our pumping station and our booster pump? Do they need to be replaced?
Yeah, so that is also part of the scope of work that we'll be doing in 2026. So our main pump station sits down off of Desert Camp when you come in through the west gate over here, right off of Tapadero. So to the right of the T's on number 9. So that's where our main pump station sits. And so basically what we would do down there, our skid and everything, the building itself is in really good condition. So what we would just do is the replacement of the control panels, the motors, the pumps themselves that go down into the wet well down there. And then as well, we have a booster pump station that sits out to the right of number 12 T box. That is an underground vault, and so the main line comes in from the hole number 11 into the side of the vault down there, and then it's pumped through the two pumps down there, and then that's what supplies the 3 mountain holes on 12, 13, and 14 for the golf course. Because of the pressure and the elevation change, we need that extra boost at the bottom of the hill to get that water up to where it needs to be on 12, 13, and 14.
Can you talk about the extent of the irrigation and the heads on a hole, and how that pervades almost every inch of turf out there?
There's many lateral lines, main lines, all kinds of things going on underground out there that nobody sees. So, and that's one of the challenges with this is, you're spending millions of dollars on an irrigation system that the membership and the golfers will never see, other than when it's running out there. Obviously, this was the main reason for the project, and our system out there right now is pushing that 26, 27-year-old mark. A typical irrigation system, varies from that 20 to 30 years, and we're right at the end of that scope. So, I can tell you over the last couple years that we're starting to see more of the old valves, more of the old heads, some of the old T's and couplings and stuff like that starting to break apart, and we're replacing these with new parts at this time. But so we're starting to see a progression of things starting to go south on us here.
This is a grid of one of the holes in the sprinkler system on one of the holes, and just visually demonstrates how a golf course will be torn up when you dig a trench for each one of these holes.
Mm-hmm.
Or each one of these sprinkler heads that need to be replaced.
Yeah, so the main lines, there's still a couple little things that are up in the air here, not knowing exactly. Typically main lines, that will probably all be dug up, taken out. The existing would be taken out. The new main lines would be then set back down in those existing trenches. As far as the laterals and stuff that go across the fairways, so there is machines there that actually pull the lateral lines underneath the ground. So we're having some soil samples taken and whatnot to see if that's even a viable option here. If that is not a viable option, they will have to literally trench lines all from cart path all the way to desert, from tee to green all the way down the hole, to install this new PVC or HDPE pipe that we'll be using on the golf course. So also on this photo, I'd like to point out, typically a typical spacing between heads. So it's all built on geometry and triangulated system. So as you can see on here, there's a number of areas where we have, for instance, on this specific area, we have a 77-foot spacing here. Over here we have a 53-foot spacing. So you can see the variation of the spacing of the system is not designed to its full capacity. You know, for instance, on here, there's 110 feet between these two heads here. So, you know, that tells me that there's obviously not enough water that's being put out in some of these areas. And you can see that, you know, during transition with some of the dry areas out there right now, and some of the areas that are taking a little longer to be grown in from eradicating the ryegrass and going back into the Bermuda grass in our summer season.
My understanding was that one of the basic principles of putting in a new irrigation system is that if you want it to be done right and you want it to be efficient, you have to make whatever golf course changes you want to make for the next 15 or 20 years.
Yep.
Before you put in the sprinkler system, so they can design the irrigation system
Accordingly to the new design. Yeah, correct. So, you know, that's one of the things, is you got to have, you know, a design of what you want your golf course to be before you take that to the irrigation designer, because what he does is then puts that onto a CAD, and, you know, he marks out all the heads and the spacings, and then you throw bunkers in the middle of all this, and you know, that messes up the spacing, you know, for irrigation purposes, and hence the reason, you know, a lot of the bunkers are wet out there. And so that's why, you know, we're looking at subsurface irrigation. We're looking at, you know, other viable options other than just overhead irrigation on a nightly basis.
So one of the elements of this project that we really haven't talked about so far is the lake system, and I guess technically it's not really part of the irrigation system per se, but and the reason I bring it up is because it could be an expensive item if something were to go wrong or is wrong currently. But what are the main elements of the lake system per se that could potentially go wrong or need replacement down the road?
Well, I would say the biggest part of it would be the liner in both of the lakes. I can tell you that, you know, over the years, because we do monitor, I have some stakes out there that we monitor to see if there's any water being lost other than what's being lost up into the atmosphere. And I haven't seen any indication that there is a tear in the liner or a leak in the lake. But that would be one of the biggest things that could happen out here is, you know, if we do have a leak in the liners, and, you know, we're losing water, that could get really expensive really quick.
Now, there's a concrete liner all around here, correct? Of about 10 feet?
Yeah, so basically the first 10 feet or so of the lake edge here is a sprayed on concrete liner. And basically they do that for any sloughing off of the native area around the lake, and just to hold things in place. So last year I actually had a butterfly valve that went bad in one of the pits down here, and so I had to drain the lake about 6-7 feet from its original surface. And so when I did that, I took that opportunity and walked the whole perimeter of this lower lake down here, and I can I can tell you that I didn't see anything that really stood out to me as far as any kind of sloughing off of the concrete or any breakdown, degradation of the concrete. And then the other thing I did not see was any buildup of DG or sticks or leaves or anything like that in that area. Now again, I could only see the first 10 feet here, so I couldn't see anything that was down any deeper than that.
So as far as we know, everything is okay for the lakes right now, but are you going to have an evaluation from a contractor at all?
Yeah, so we've been discussing this recently, and I think it would be in our best interest if we had a contractor come out that does that kind of work, and have them assess, you know, if there's any dredging that needs to be done, any material that needs to be taken out in any of the deeper parts of the lake here. And then again, just assess that the liner is okay and in good condition for the future.
Great. So the time to do this actually would be when we're doing the project and we're not utilizing the lakes at all.
That would be
for
an
water.
absolute perfect time to do this, yeah.
So one of the other components of this is the aeration system. Can you explain how
Yeah.
that works and how extensive that really is?
So around both the lake, there's multiple pits that have valves in them, that have compressors in them. The one up here in between the two lakes, there's a pit down here, and it has 3 compressors in there that run the aeration system, the bubblers within the lakes. So on the lower lake, we have 7 or 8 different bubblers down there, and then the upper lake again, there's 5 or 6, 7 bubblers up there as well. So the compressors in there, we rebuild those compressors about on an annual basis right now, and just to keep the pressure up. After about a year, they tend to lose pressure, and the aeration in the lakes is very important for the ecosystem and you know, the buildup of the algae and all that stuff. So it just keeps everything aerated, the oxygen level in the water for the fish, etc. So you know, that's something that we maintain all the time, and we look at that stuff minimal on an annual basis.
So it's unlikely that that would need to be replaced.
Correct. Yeah. Maybe some new bubblers or something, you know, at that time, but you know, we've replaced them a few years back as well.
Okay, thank you. In summary, all these changes that we need to do to the golf course, the sense I get from the conversation here is that it will help us a lot in labor costs and reduction of labor costs for the future. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think anywhere we can one, reduce the size of turf, reduce the size of a bunker, have better efficient irrigation system. You know, just the inefficiencies, you know, changing them in the positive direction of you know, fixing some of these challenges that we live and breathe every single day. So, you know, it's going to help us on the labor side and on the operation side as well.